Now that we learned about data handling and also speed and weights, there is also something that is a little bit particular to Busang, and it's how we handle conditional logic. And the typical case you want to do is when you handle a precondition. For instance, you want to make sure that a user is logged in before starting a test. But of course, if the user is not logged in, you might want to run the login test case and not fail it, right? But you could also have conditions like make sure to add an item until a certain conditions happens. Let's say the next link appears to test pagination. So all this are example of conditional logic, and it's very powerful in the Busang tool. I'm just going to illustrate how it's done here. And what we're going to do is we're going to create a module called conditional logic. And if I can spell this correctly. And then we're going to go ahead and create the yellow or red, which is the test case we have to illustrate this. And it's fairly simple. If there is red appears, you should hit you hit generate color, right? And if red appears, you should hit the red button, and then it says success. And if you hit generate color and you click the wrong button, it's going to tell you to fail. So we're just going to go ahead and just record this just as we see it, and we'll see what happens. Okay, so I'm going to do record, hit generate color, and then I'm going to create an assertion, right? The validation on the word red, and then I'm going to hit the red. Okay, that's great. So will Busang now hit the right button? Well, not likely, right? We've just basically said make sure that red is in the picture. So what we'll do is just going to go ahead, and of course here it was success because we were lucky. 50% of the time red is going to show up, and now we were lucky again. But just keep playing it. Eventually it's going to show yellow, and then of course it's not going to work. So now I'm getting a lot of red in a row here. So let's see how there finally, how when you flip a coin. So now of course it's going to say, hey, red doesn't exist, and of course it's going to fail. So you can see that failure right here. If you would go into the report, you're going to see a failure there if you run it to the end. So how to do this? Well, in order to do this a little bit easier, we're going to switch to the graphical user interface view, and then we're going to go ahead and we're going to add a group here. So I know this UI is a little bit new, but we're going to try it anyway. So what we're going to do is we're going to add the group, and we're going to add the validation inside of the group. So the first thing we do in the group now is checking if the validation is there, okay? So now, if I hit the plus, you see that the validate exists red is the first thing that happens. So what do we want to do? Well, what we typically want to do is we want to make sure that we click red if this is correct, if this asserts correctly, and we click yellow otherwise. So what we're going to do is we're going to move red into the group as well. Just put it right here, and now you see we validate if red exists, we're going to click red, right? But then we're going to say hello here if it's not correct. If it doesn't hit red here, we're going to check the failed condition here and say if not, we're not going to continue to the next action. We're going to break the group, we're going to jump out of the group, and we're going to display success. So we can actually customize all these success, failed, and error condition. Error condition usually means you don't find the element. And then we're going to add another group here, and we're going to say, hey, this is what we call an else group. This is the group where if this group fails, it's going to jump into the next group. And then here we're going to add a single action where we hit the yellow button instead. So we're going to try this and see what happens, okay? So let's see. You click the first one, and then we'll go ahead and we'll play this. And now if you want to, we can also switch back here, and you can see the groups being laid out like this. You see the else group with the yellow button, and the validation with the break condition, as you see there highlighted. So now let's try this. As you can see, now it managed to not validate red. It was trying to find red, but when it didn't, it still marked as success, and it jumped into the else group and hit the yellow button. And let's try again that it works for red as well. And as you can see, it found the red and it clicked the red button. So this is a very simple way and quick way to handle kind of if-else conditions, right? To be able to do one thing based on the conditions and the answer and what you see in the interface. And also, of course, here, by having these different customizable kind of exit conditions, we can also call other test cases and also make sure to say, you know, if this doesn't happen, if this fails, let's not break the test. Let's not mark this as a failure in the report. So this is very powerful.